Hi everyone, hope you're well and looking forward to our little session. So let's get straight into the chanting before our meditations and continuing the Dharma Talk on the 8 verses of thought transformation. Specifically, we're in the middle of the 2nd verse right now. Part 3 today. Mindfulness, awareness, conscientiousness. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami, Tatayampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Tatayampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Tatayampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May they be free from suffering and its causes. May they never be parted from the happiness beyond suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment to the near, and aversion from the far. I shall cause this. Great compassionate Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. And reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every types of offerings, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all of my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in all the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for all sentient beings. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. However innumerable all sentient beings are, I vow to save them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Ayata Gati Gati Para Samgati Bodhi Soha. Tayata Gati Gati Para Samgati Bodhi Soha. Tayata Gati Gati Para Samgati Bodhi Soha. So, time for some meditation. So let's release the tension in the body initially. Bring your mind inside your body. And let's release the tension from the bottom to the top. Tips of the toes, up the legs, to the shoulders, down to the tips of your fingers, and then up to the top of your head. So let's take a few moments to do this now. And now briefly scan your body again just to see if there's any leftover tension that you're able to release. And now bring your mind to your breathing. Initially the tip of your nose, and follow the feeling of the breath as you breathe in your nose, past your throat, past your chest area, all the way into your lungs. And then breathe out your nose again. Just focusing as much as you can seamlessly on the feeling of the breath as you breathe in and out. Don't try to regulate your breaths, make them longer or shorter or whatever. Just breathe naturally. You may also add the extra technique of counting the breaths to 10, from 1 to 10. 1 in breath, 1 out breath is 1, and so on and so forth. But if you get distracted while counting towards 10, then go back to 1 at that time. Just an extra technique to keep your mind focused on your breath. And while you are engaging in this practice, if any thoughts arise or mental activity whatsoever arises, don't cling to it. Don't grasp at it. Also, don't try to force it away or even deny it, but simply let it go naturally by refocusing on your breath. And if your mind starts to become dull or sleepy, then wake it up a little bit by refocusing on your breath more brightly. So let's practice like this for a little while in silence. And now we can feel very pleased with ourselves and fill ourselves with universal loving kindness. Going with the feeling of loving kindness, filling your mind with this feeling. And you can also utilize the visualization technique, visualizing your whole being filling with white light, or if you prefer, nectar. Fill yourself with so much loving kindness that it now overflows and radiates outwards, initially to your loved ones, your family, your friends, and fills them with the universal loving kindness too. Brings them happiness, freedom from suffering, and peace. Now also include strangers, those people that you are indifferent towards. Fill them with the universal love and kindness as well, causing them happiness, freedom from suffering, and peace too. And also those you find difficult to deal with, may regard as enemies. May they also be happy, free from suffering, be peaceful, filling them with so much loving kindness as well. So now gradually radiate this loving kindness out further and further distance-wise, around your immediate area, to all living beings. No matter what mentality they have or physicality, radiate your loving kindness to them, in the waters, on the land, in the air. And whether you know about them or not. Now have your loving kindness pervade throughout your whole state or county. And all other states and counties throughout your whole country. And other countries too, initially those that you're familiar with, may have an affinity towards, as well as those you're indifferent towards, and those you may have negative feelings towards. So your loving kindness pervades throughout all of the countries on this planet, and also throughout all of the oceans, all of the waterways. Have your loving kindness pervade down to the core of the earth and also to the outermost atmosphere. For your loving kindness pervades throughout this whole planet and beyond. Gathering so much momentum now, radiating this loving kindness out further and further to include the whole solar system. And the whole galaxy, the whole universe. So your loving kindness pervades throughout infinite space. We are not disconnected from any living being and all of nature throughout infinite space. So now let's change techniques. That was obviously to develop more and more loving kindness. Now we work to develop more and more compassion, whilst at the same time dissolving our ego, self-centeredness, and our attachment. So bring to mind all of the difficulties that all living beings go through, all of the sufferings. the mental difficulties as well as the physical difficulties, and wish to free them from these sufferings, to do whatever we can to free them from the suffering. So visualize innumerable living beings in front of you. Even if you can't do the visualization very clearly, just know that they're there. And we will relieve them of their suffering to begin with, whilst at the same time dissolving our ego and self-centeredness. So visualize coming from their heart centers is black smoke. And this enters into your heart center and melts away. We will do this on the in-breath, the inhalation. And then on the out-breath, we will switch to giving all of our happiness, our goodness, everything we find pleasing away. So coming from our heart center will be the white light entering into the heart centers of all living beings, giving them happiness, whilst at the same time diminishing, eventually dissolving our attachments. So on the in-breath, take the black smoke from others. On the out-breath, give the white light. So let's practice like this for a short while. So now we can cease the visualization. We feel very pleased with ourselves once more. And let's do the dedication prayer. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of the Buddha, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And may the precious view of Shunyata, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. So we'll continue now the commentary on the 8 verses of thought transformation. Detailed commentary. Of course, as mentioned before, we are up to the 2nd verse. Whenever I'm with others, I will practice seeing myself as the lowest of all, and from the very depth of my heart, I will respectfully hold others as supreme. And so, paraphrasing basically, as mentioned in the last couple of weeks, we are working here to develop a mind of equanimity, a mind of non-bias, so that we're able to benefit living beings equally, have compassion, genuine compassion, to free others from suffering and to help others to be happy, doing whatever we can to have this happen, but based on a mind of equanimity. Of course, we don't have that right now. Unless, of course, you do. And if you do, I rejoice And if you don't, I still rejoice because you're working your way to realizing this mind of equanimity, as we all are. Okay, so last week I finished up on mentioning the impermanent nature, basically, of our relationships with others. If you may bring to mind that even those beings, those people, say that you love or you have an affinity towards, regard as family, friends, and the like. This changes day to day, doesn't it? We may always have this, loving kindness for them, compassion for them, this close feeling, this affinity with them. May always have it, but the way we feel towards them is dependent upon our mind at any given moment, as well as their mind and their behavior at any given moment as well. And the example I can give you of that is, let's say, for instance, you are with a friend or whatever, and you are pleasing each other. Of course, not based on a mind of equanimity now, but pleasing each other. And then all of a sudden, one person does something that is untoward or the other person doesn't agree with, and then there is some sort of discord there. And maybe this one person now doesn't like for a little while the other person, maybe vice versa, and maybe together. But also you use this example the other way. Let's say you've had an argument with a family member or a friend, and you're having some negative feelings at that time. Then all of a sudden, either one of you or both of you realize, actually, this is really trivial or something, and that why destroy a friendship or any form of good relationship? Why destroy that because you had a disagreement? Why does one disagreement or one negative time or maybe a few negative times destroy a whole lifetime of friendship, for instance? Or maybe the other person does something that's actually pleasing for you now, and all of a sudden everything's forgiven. This is because we have a very fluctuating mind. We fluctuate between being very happy, very contented, to maybe indifferent, and then, of course, sometimes a lack of contentment, unhappy. And sometimes the mind is very full of intense attachment to that which we find pleasing, or those we find pleasing. And then, or other times, maybe really, really intense aversion, even dislike and hatred towards other people or a person or circumstances. So sometimes their mind is fluctuating, between this, like a pendulum on a clock. Sometimes it's too much attachment, sometimes too much aversion, sometimes maybe don't care, indifference, So I kind of finished up last week like that, and we'll continue that right now. So you can see how those beings that we're indifferent towards kind of cover most beings. There's only, certain amounts of people that we have some direct contact with in our lives, and that includes the animals too around us. Some people, for instance, now I'm onto animals. Some people like kangaroos here in Australia, Other people say they like kangaroos but eat them. Then other people say, I don't like kangaroos because maybe they're a farmer and they destroy my crops. You can see, but the kangaroo is just a kangaroo. It's people's different minds and attitudes towards this being, particularly right now in this example. Other people may be scared of snakes, sharks, crocodiles, dangerous creatures. But then other people love them. So it's all changing all the time, to do with other people as well as other living beings, other animals and insects and so forth. So where I've got marked to resume says, reflect on this fluctuating nature of our relationships and on the potential for change, even from one moment to the next. I've just mentioned that basically. But you could just think about that, the fluctuating nature of our relationships, even with ourselves. Sometimes we're really puffed up with ego and pride, and other times maybe we're down on ourselves. Other times we don't think about it. So you can see how things change all the time. I remember, years ago, I really had an aversion. I was working in the entertainment industry, but I really had an aversion to the business people in this industry. Very selfish, self-centered, and greedy. And sometimes they liked me, sometimes they didn't. And for a short period of time, during different times, maybe I was affected from that outside stuff. And so I'd have some sort of aversion to them. Really didn't want to hang out with them, but I had to hang out with them, doing what they called in the industry is networking. So there were times when I really had to, maybe pretend a little bit, unfortunately, but other times I actually was wise to a certain degree with it and actually said, okay, now you go out there, they're just living beings. Don't pay attention to their behavior. Pay attention to your behavior. And in those times, maybe it was a lot easier. So we need to give up these aversions. That doesn't mean you have to hang out with bad people, okay? You really don't. Or people that maybe not bad, but for whatever reason, you've got some strong karmic connections together from previous lives and you just don't get on. You don't have to hang out with them. What we're doing here now is to give up this bias, give up this dislike, this aversion to those beings that, for whatever reason, you don't feel good about. Then also giving up the attachment. Remember, attachment and aversion are two sides of the same coin, really, two opposites. So I mentioned last week as well that our attachment very quickly can turn into the opposite, in even full-blown anger and the like. But also our aversion can turn into the opposite as well. And once again, the indifference can change depending on our interaction with others. See how the mind is fluctuating all the time. Let's train the mind to be a mind of equanimity, more of a balanced mind. Be more humble. Create more stability in your mind, specifically with the practice of meditation. And those meditations we just practice help us to do that. Like 4 types of meditations really that we do in a short period of time. Releasing the tension in the body, which in a sense is preparatory for the breath meditation. Then the breath meditation to develop one-pointed concentration eventually. Loving kindness and then compassion, right? So these meditations can help us to do that. And also I encourage you to practice vipassana, even though maybe at the moment the concentration or ability to concentrate is quite fragmented, sometimes good, sometimes not so good. Lots of distractions, things like this. But you utilize whatever concentration you have to contemplate things, contemplate situations, contemplate your own mind, investigate, analyze without judging. So you can practice this penetrative insight meditation as well. So going on, also reflect on the animals, which we've done already, but even other realms of existence that we don't know about, because as human beings, really what we can directly see and know directly right now from our experience through our 5 aggregates, is human beings and animals, the human realm and the animal realm. The other realms, the heavenly realms and so forth, we can only bring to mind and with inferential knowledge from the scriptures, from Buddha's teachings. Okay, so maybe the Buddha explains, for instance, especially in the Mahayana Sutra, the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva Mahasattva's 12 Great Vows Sutra, something like that. There's a lot of description of the hells, and so you can read that and look and go, okay, this is what other beings are experiencing in these other realms of existence. I must develop compassion for them. I want them to be free from this. At the same time, encouraging us not to engage in the negative causes that could result in us being born with such suffering. So wonderful teachings, sometimes very confronting, some of these sutras. But that's our own ego that's finding it confronting. The sutras are there as methods to be able to train the mind, work our way towards enlightenment and help others to do likewise. So ourselves and others are constantly changing. If anybody disagrees, contemplate that. And also, once again, you can always shoot me questions as well, no problem. Even if you don't agree with something, you can tell me you don't agree with it. If you don't want to talk about it anymore, just say, I don't want to talk about it. If you want some elaboration on the teachings, then just let me know that. If you want me to answer certain specific questions, let me know that too. Okay. And other teachers too. So all beings can attain enlightenment eventually. This is our true nature. We should bring that to mind often, especially if we are finding it difficult to maintain the mind of equanimity. Think about that. Every single living being is equal in the sense, even though we don't understand it right now, it's only a concept to us, but we all have the potential for enlightenment. And even if you doubt that, you can think, how else can it be? If that is not the case, then things are imbalanced actually, without the cause and effect. Once these are uprooted, purified, the causes of them, the ignorance, the attachment, the aversion is uprooted, how can it be anything else but enlightenment mind? Okay. The practice of cultivating equanimity involves a form of detachment, though I like to use the word non-attachment. It's important to understand this non-attachment, rather than thinking, I just turn my back on things. That's not non-attachment. Or even if we use the words, as some teachers do, detachment. It's not detachment in the ordinary worldly understanding of this, to turn our back on something, walk away from something. Actually, it's facing it with courage, with all of the paramitas in play, the generosity, the morality, the patience, enthusiastic effort, and with concentration and whatever level of wisdom we have now. It is not indifference towards others or things, or indifference even towards our own mind and our own mental activities or our own physical activities. It's not an indifference in this sense, okay? It's not like we don't care. So first, cultivating non-attachment allows us to overcome and relinquish our discriminatory emotions towards others that are based on considerations of closeness or distance. So this is pretty much talking about what I was talking about before, really. We have these emotions, these discriminatory emotions. I like this, I don't like that, to keep it simple, towards other living beings. And this is based on the consideration of, are we close to them? Do we like them? Or are we distanced from them? Do we not like them? Once again, not a mind of equanimity at that time. But this is not non-attachment. Okay? So I'll repeat that because I like the verse. In fact, I should write a teaching on this, expand upon it. First, excuse me. Cultivating non-attachment allows us to overcome or relinquish any discriminatory emotions towards others that are based on considerations of our closeness or our distance. You give up attachment to what you find pleasing and give up aversion to what you find unpleasant, and you give up indifference to everything else in between. Okay, so giving up this attachment to what we find pleasing. This frees our mind from the shackles of attachment. Giving up aversion to what we find unpleasant. It's freeing our mind from aversion. And also it's likewise with indifference to everything else. When we free our mind from this indifference, this basically turning our back on things, then it opens the mind up. It frees the mind from not caring. So sometimes, maybe some people who don't understand the Buddha's teachings and where they are pointing towards enlightenment, maybe don't understand these things. They think, oh, if I give up attachment, I'm not going to be enjoying anything that's pleasing. No, it's not that at all. You're actually opening your mind up and the possibilities to more contentment, to more happiness, okay? Freeing the mind. What can be more freeing than freeing the mind? Some people may even find that idea boring. But, always looking for excitement, always trying to avoid boredom or suffering of some sort. See, mind like pendulum. We want this even mind, so that we can experience fully. And even if you utilize this example here, so that we can experience all of the beauty that surrounds us, and even the beauty within difficulties, because these are great opportunities for us to purify the mind, to improve constantly. Okay, so the next bit says, instead, you will cultivate a sense of care for others equally. If we cultivate this sense of care for others equally and the wish to free them from the suffering, this is genuine compassion. There's no such thing, by the way, as biased compassion, really. Genuine love and kindness, to remind you, is wishing that all beings have happiness, cultivating a mind that thinks like that, okay? The Buddhist teaching on detachment or non-attachment does not imply developing an attitude of disengagement from or indifference towards the world or life. So I'll leave you with that one to think about, okay? And then I'll pick up from there next week. The Buddhist teaching on detachment or non-attachment does not imply developing an attitude of disengagement from or indifference to the world or to all of our life or life experiences. It's not turning our back on things so that we don't get upset, so that we don't lose what we think we have. It's facing reality, really facing it, even if it's inconvenient. Like I've said before, and this is commonly used, especially with scientists, we must face the inconvenient truth so that we get to know the truth, not continue to live with comfortable lies and a lack of understanding.